Meeting. You've had an opportunity, I think, to look at the minutes. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The minutes are approved. All right, we have some old business, which sort of coordinates with new business. And so, Mr. Woodson.
All right, picking up with where we were last time, we looked at some revisions to the fees. If you were less than 100 people, you were at $250 for your renewal. If you were between 100 and $299, you were at $500 for your renewal. And if you're over or 300 and above, you're at $750. So that's what we present to you today for the renewal fees, and the application fee remained at $100.
Ms. Woodson, is this something that I presume that if we were, say we go through with this today, voted for it, a year from now, after we've had a chance to look at it, we can obviously change
Yes,
this.
and we have been asked to present that at the end of 2023 school year, sometime around May, to a administration committee meeting, so you can review how it's gone for that year.
Okay, thank you.
The other change we made was it would only be in effect from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. each day. And that was done because that's when the problems arise, when the crowds arise, and we're not having problems at 5 p.m. and 6 p.m. with Bama Theater and things like that.
Right.
And just for a point of clarification, because there may be a little confusion, there may be some questions. You do not have to have a queuing permit. You do not have to queue. But if you choose to queue, then you have to have a permit.
So what are we gonna do, Chief, if we've got a sidewalk full of people out there and there's no queuing line?
We'll tell them to move on. We're gonna stop the queue and tell people to disperse.
Speak, I can't hear you.
We're gonna tell them to disperse. We're gonna try to get the crowd out. And again, the problems arise when the queuing is 6-7 feet off, causing everybody to step out of the street.
But the whole sidewalk is the city's sidewalk, is that
Correct.
correct? So none of this sidewalk belongs to the establishments at all. It's all city right of way, and we're allowing them to be on our right of way. Is that correct?
Now, the permit would do that. If they don't have a permit, then everybody's gonna be moving and nobody will be standing there to get in.
Okay. That won't be the easiest thing to do, but it can be done. Right. Okay. Thank you. Anybody got any questions for Mr. Woodson or the chief? I know we've got some visitors here. Did y'all have a spokesman, or does some people want to make some comments?
Quick question, Jimbo, do we have an estimate of how many applicants we would expect? for this?
We're
Is this
expecting
just
maybe 5.
5?
So you said, correct, you said they don't have to queue.
No, if you don't need one and you don't have those crowds at your door waiting to get in, you don't have to get one. But if you want people standing at your door to get in and you want to line them up or have them crowded around your door, then you're going to have a problem. That's queuing, and you're subject to the penalties for queuing without a permit.
Okay.
And there may be some questions, because we got this question in our meeting a few months ago about insurance, and that was brought up, but we didn't see a liability issue because we think we're making it much safer to have a defined queuing area, and then the police will then move everybody else along.
Okay.
Certainly, if there's a liability issue that exists, it exists in a higher degree now by having that huge crowd out, because something happening would be reasonably foreseeable.
Okay.
But wouldn't the liability issue be that if the mob is just milling about smartly on city right of way, they're not attributable to the business, I'm talking about from an insurance standpoint. Whereas if they're in a queue for a business that a license has been paid for, they are attributable to the business, right?
You've got a defined line, and you could get sued either way. If you've got this music playing and you've got this crowd out there of 100 to 150 people all waiting to get in, then you got a problem already there. If you've got it more defined to a queuing line, which is 4 feet wide, it's orderly, it only exceeds beyond a certain point, then you're in a much safer position. And you're gonna be finding much harder to be sued and much harder to be liable versus the big mob that might be outside the door now.
If you're making an effort there.
Yes.
With that queuing line.
And then everything outside your queuing line that the police are sweeping along, that has nothing to do with it. And over time, then hopefully the people that aren't interested in going in there, being your patrons, will quit coming to the area.
Yeah.
If I'm serving on the city right away, and we have multiple locations that have table seating and allow patrons to drink on the city right away, correct? And they pay a sidewalk cafe fee for that. Is that any less liability than having people
No,
queue?
that's part of their licensed premises. It's gonna be treated just like the inside of their restaurant or bar, because they have it, it's theirs. They have an exclusive use permit for it. They have it partitioned off with bollards and chains, and they're approved to serve alcohol and food there. So they're in charge of that area as far as their customers go.
Well, I didn't mean to
No, you good.
interrupt that, but let's hear it. I mean, I've listened to several of them. There's some points that need to come
No,
up.
Mr. Busby, this is your district, and I feel like you have a.
Well, we both shared this, cause I've been getting emails as well from various persons, about asking, can this be case by case, queuing, can it be a case by case instead of,
So let's, here were my questions. Who has to do it? How do you know who does it?
right,
The fee structure, I think, needed to be more. I think everybody in this room, regardless whether you're a bar owner, or councilman, or staff, there is this compelling need that we feel like we need to do something so that we don't erupt in some kind of Chattanooga-style incident like they had. And yet, we're not quite sure what that something is.
right, we're trying to figure it out.
And so let's hear what the people down there have got to say. They brought up some good points with me on insurance. By the way, the best point, and it's longer term, is that sidewalk on the strip to be widened. Those are useless parking spots. And it's part of this downtown University Court, separate conversation. So go ahead, Brandon.
I'm getting behind the post.
Okay, that's okay.
Do I need to say my name or anything?
Back on. No, go ahead. Come on.
So I guess my question, the thing that, Mr. Wilson said, you said only 5 businesses you think are gonna have to get?
We are making an educated guess that based on the crowds that exist now, there'll be around 5 that would immediately come in for a permit.
But how did y'all determine it? I mean, I'm just trying to figure out
I
who they are.
did not. I got that from somebody else. But
Okay,
in terms of where the problems exist now, there's an estimated 5 that we would say definitely would have to get a permit.
so are we saying only strip businesses, or are we saying?
This is anywhere.
This is city-wide, okay. Okay, that was my main question. That's the thing you brought up was 5, because I was under the impression that everybody had to get this
No,
permit.
you do not.
Okay.
If you don't have a problem at 10 p.m. with a crowd at your door, you do not need a permit.
Okay, that's interesting. We'll have to look at that some more.
I can think of 1, 2 on the strip, 1 on the corner down here. Where else do we see crowds lined up to get in at 10 o'clock?
On the
Timerson?
public right of way.
Yeah.
Timerson may
Harrison,
may have 1 or 2.
Yeah,
That-
well, I mean,
that's
they're
what
not on
we
the right
think.
of way, I don't think.
You know,
Huh?
Timerson owns a lot of that property.
Yeah.
Timerson is actually part of their property.
So they're kind of like Tripp. Your Innisfree owns most of the property.
Well, we don't cross our property, our lines don't go past our property line.
That's what I
So
thought.
I don't know if that,
You wouldn't need one.
If you're not in the right of way, you don't need a permit.
so if we don't block sidewalk, public access, then we don't have to. My only thing is, and I think that pretty much everyone here, our lawyers have told us multiple times, and they come in and they train our door guys, that we lose all liability, as soon as our door guys cross the front door and something happens outside of our gate, we become fully responsible. Our door guy can be sued, we will be sued.
Wow.
Our door guys are not allowed to go outside of our gate. If a fight breaks out outside, our door guys do not cross our gate. We've called police sometimes, we call them if something happens, but our door guys are not allowed, and they are told by our lawyers, they are not allowed to cross our gate. As soon as they kick somebody out or something's going on outside, they are not allowed to leave our property. As soon as they leave our property, they become an instant liability to us and themselves. And it's happened.
To
Sure
reinforce what was the place we closed down on Red Drew, before, huh? High Tide. And Chief, if you remember that case, that doorman or bouncer arguably used good judgment, was courageous in what he did, kept somebody dangerous from going in. Everything he did was right until the guy kept running his mouth and he stepped out of the bar to go out to the curb. And that's where the whole thing turned on him and we shut that place down.
Well, can I address that a little bit? I think that's good advice, because ultimately your insurance coverage is stopping where you stop doing business.
Yes.
The difference, I don't think this would apply to you guys. The real difference is, let's say, another bar downtown that I don't think it would apply to, probably let's say the Alcove. The Alcove has a sidewalk cafe. They have the area out there where they serve. Because they're doing business on that right of way, it's part of their premises, it's part of, they're covered, they have kind of as if it's part of their building. Here, what you have is when you have somebody standing in a line and somebody at that door taking money from them, in my opinion, you're conducting business on that sidewalk already. You already have the liability. This gives you a permit, a right to use it, to potentially actually get insurance coverage for where you can't get it now. I personally think it's probably safer from coverage aspect. That's just my opinion.
Well, like, our door guys are on our property. Like,
Sure, and you don't go out on the sidewalk, so it doesn't.
We don't conduct any business
It's
on the
apples and
sidewalk.
oranges. But
I don't think you'll need one.
If you were standing out on the sidewalk and you had 50 people down and you're sitting there taking money from them, in my
If you're out
opinion,
on the sidewalk doing it,
then you're
that's
conducting
different.
business on that.
But if they're in your cafe permit license, which is an extension of your bar.
Sure.
So anything that goes on, if someone has a patio, that's part of the bar.
Absolutely.
And we know that, we pay for it, or whoever needs a cafe permit license. At Copper Top, we had to have it when we owned Copper Top, because that's, underneath that awning is city property.
And-
And so we had to have a permit, and that's an extension of the bar. Outside of that is where the bar stops.
100%. I think this would potentially allow, again, not you guys just by the way where you're located and how you operate, but some of the bars that do queue on public sidewalk, I think this may actually give them the ability to get coverage for that. Whereas right now they have the same liability, they just don't have the insurance coverage.
I can't answer
Sure.
to someone on the strip. I just know what our lawyers teach our door guys. And we have 3 meetings a year with our lawyers and our door guys, so they know. It's just, I just don't know how, if something were to happen on the strip, and like you have on the strip, you've got multiple bars and their lines are going to cross, how do you determine what line they're in? They don't even know half the time, and you're gonna have, and I can't speak for these guys, I'm just saying in general, if it was me, I wouldn't tell a door guy to go out there and start yelling at kids to get in line, because it could be a kid talking to someone in line, but standing in the sidewalk, and you don't know if they're standing in line.
Well, that's why under this policy, the lines would have to be clear and defined versus where they are now. Right now, TPD tries to clear the sidewalk and say, keep moving, because you've got folks having to get out in the street to get around them, and everybody says, oh, I'm in line. And we don't want to break up people's lines, right? The TPD works really hard not to interrupt the folks that are actually doing business, but with a clear, defined line, you can say, if you're in line, you need to get in line. If you're not in line, you need to keep moving. And I think it will allow a lot of clarity. obviously this is something that we haven't done before, but.
Well, right now, it seems like from the video we saw recently, it's pretty chaotic down there at times. And I mean, I think y'all realize that, and you don't want that. I know you don't. And we've got to do something. And this is the best idea I've heard, guys. It really is.
Well,
We don't have enough police officers to line the street with policemen.
I was gonna say, some of our situations are different with the storefronts. Myself down at Colette's, you come onto our property to get into our front door, you've got about maybe a 20-foot section of our property, and then traditionally, let's say on a home game, our line is gonna wrap around our patio, and it would go down the strip towards Alabama Express. So by this language in here, and someone please correct me if I'm wrong, but my line can now wrap around my building only half the side of my building, which puts us in that alley. I think that alley is 6th Street. I can't remember the proper name. But my question is, so if that's how I need to set up now, I'm intruding onto the city's right of way. The city, that's a street there. So I've gotta have 4 feet clearance there off my line. So my question is, how is our situation gonna be looked at? Cause ours is a little different than say Rounders and 1225 where they, next to each other. I don't have existing businesses.
Do
to
you
my right.
anticipate those kind of lines?
Say again.
Do you anticipate those kind of lines?
Yes, sir.
You
Yeah,
do?
bring on.
Yeah, absolutely.
We gotta take a field trip.
I just, and so, once we get to a certain point in that line.
Yeah.
Let's go.
So if you're lined up in my line and you're past half the distance on my side of my building, am I responsible then for sending my door guys out there and telling all those people that are past that point, you guys gotta move on, you can't be in line? Or is that something where TPD is gonna come in? That's where I think Tripp was saying that we open our door guys up. If we go out there and someone's waiting in line and he just not gonna listen to my 21-year-old door guy and he
Right.
could haul off and hit him in the mouth, well, that's getting to the point of what Eve, I think, was trying to tell you about
Sorry.
opening yourself up for liability. So that's a question that we had.
You will be responsible for your queuing line.
Correct.
Do we have the
That's
video?
question. So if your queuing line is getting too long, somebody's gotta cut it off.
And
TPD will
yeah,
take care of the rest.
And if anybody's giving y'all, your door guys, any problems, and tell your door guys to just disengage and go on. Call one of us over there and we'll handle it. I mean, that's what we're there for. We don't wanna expect your door guy to start throwing people out of line if they're past a half. If somebody is not cooperating, just flag one of our officers down and we'll come take care of that.
I'm Jay Jarrett with 1225. So pleasure to be here. I got a few questions, and I think some of the video or some of the caption has been related to our business. And certainly we're thankful and grateful to be in Tuscaloosa and be able to be on the strip. So I got a couple of questions, certainly in line with some of the business owners over there as well. We have a cafe permit. So the way I understand it today is that it sounds like our understanding is our business extend to the outside, within our cafe permit, and then anything outside of that, that's the public right away. So our business actually, in our line, actually exists within our cafe permit, that cafe area. Correct?
And is that defined by the post and the chain you've got?
That's correct.
Is that the defined boundary of the cafe permit operation?
That's the defined boundary of the cafe permit operation that does not cease being city right of way. It just allows you to use that portion of city right of way.
And we do. So that's where our line exists today. So I got a few questions. So as it relates to, and as I read this ordinance, proposed ordinance, it speaks to minimum required sidewalk clearances. And I think that's what you guys over here speaking to. Other than ingress and egress, which relates to fire code reason, are you saying that, that we now take on that police function as far as clearing the right of way, as far as based on these minimum sidewalk requirements you guys are speaking to? Because right here it says, business shall maintain all minimum required sidewalk clearances as shown on the queuing permit. That must be outside of our queue, correct?
The, part of it's your doorway, which means you have to keep your doorway clear just like you do now, so people can get in and out. I didn't understand the other part of your question about the sidewalk.
So right here it says, maintain all minimum required sidewalk clearances.
So is that the
That's what the language-
ADA, is that the
That's
area
C5.
from
That's
his
C5.
chain, in his case, northward to the curb?
I think that's in how you set up your queuing area. Once you put up your barriers, then you have to have enough room for like a wheelchair to pass. That's what that's for.
Got it. All right, so this ordinance speaks to a lot about the queue, but you bring up crowd control, the ability, like, and I think the word I heard was mob, or the group of people, I like to say, that's out there. So it doesn't speak to the business owners having to police or address the people that's gathering that's not inside the queue.
Correct. That's gonna be a police responsibility.
So can this ordinance speak to, or clearly define and speak to, or add a provision that says that business owners are not responsible for the actions or the conduct of those outside of the queue? So again, we're kind of, for insurance reasons, that, you know, we can kind of address that in language.
That seems fair.
Sounds reasonable to me, I think.
Seems
it's
fair to me.
Sorry.
That seems fair.
Yep.
Yeah, sure.
All right.
We could
a few other
add
things here.
we could add that.
All right, thank you. It also speaks to, in section D, it speaks to the chief or his designee. The designee can be a first year rookie cop that's out there, or anybody designated. You're talking about shutting down a business for 24 hours, which can be consequential, crucial. to
The desi-
this-
The
so-
designee is gonna be probably the highest ranking person that's there, but it's, other than the chief, it may be an assistant chief, it may be a captain. It's not gonna be a,
Perfect, can we call that out, right? So we'll know exactly who that designee is, and so it can be the commanding officer, the captain, so we'll know that it's just not anyone walking up saying that the business is no longer.
Well, let me ask you this, if, say, a patrolman walked up to you, are you gonna cooperate with him or tell him he doesn't have the authority to do that?
Absolutely, I mean, the goal is, as we
Absolutely
always
what?
do, absolutely cooperate.
Okay, that's what I wanna hear.
I mean, that goes for every bar owner though, right? Cause I wanna make sure we're not just singling out one club. You know, I'm hearing, I'm hearing what we're saying, but what's the five we're talking about? We need, because I mean, I see this video, but that's A-Day, and every game is not A-Day, right? I don't think we load up like that, but.
Football game.
Well, that's fine, but I'm saying, I'm just trying to figure out what are we saying, because I don't feel comfortable even voting on this queue because it's not clear. First of all, we said that every bar had to have queuing, right? And I think they assume the same thing. Every bar on the strip, right?
No, we've never said that. Only the
So-
ones that wanna do business on city right away.
Okay, so that would be everyone on the strip far as from Gillette 1225, am I right?
only those that won't have
Rounders.
people in line to get in their establishments starting at 10 p.m.
So what is being the nucleus of this is to make sure that no one particular establishment is being targeted, and that the lingo and the verbiage of the text or the document is clear so that there will not be any loopholes in the dissemination or the enforcing of the document.
The other real option is for the police to be able to maintain order and maintain safety. They have to be able to maintain sidewalks. The other option
want
is the
that.
officers can come through and say, there's no lines on the sidewalk, everybody keeps moving. If you can't get in the bar, you're not in line, keep moving.
And trust me,
That's
that's
true.
the last thing we want is.
Hold on.
Exactly.
Hold on.
Hold on.
Go ahead.
Man. That's the last thing we want, is some violence or something to pop off like that. Trust me, I think all of us don't want to accord with that. But I just want to make sure that we're lined up with being fair to every bar owner on the strip, because I mean, I think 1225 and Rounders are in a kind of crazy situation because they're door to door and they both have good crowds. But we got to be sure, and even we're presenting queuing, but is queuing the real answer though? I mean, is this going to help for real? I mean, is it the real answer to controlling the lines? Because you can have.
Let me speak to that real quick. is it gonna solve it? Absolutely not.
Right.
Just all those crowds, I mean, just having a queuing permit
Yeah.
is not gonna make
It's
the
gonna be
strip
crazy.
better tomorrow, right? It's just one tool. We don't wanna show, we love to see people lined up trying to get into a place.
Right.
Police, the last thing they wanna do is any kind of enforcement action down there.
Right.
They're probably working on their 16th hour and they just wanna sit there and not be talked to. But the reality is when you have, 7, 8 feet of a queuing line pushing everybody out the roadway, and then, again, this happens, 9 times, 10 times a year, it does create a problem, and if we had a defined area with queuing, we can say, all right, those people are staying in the line and getting a business. These people aren't. You gotta keep moving. You can't stay in here. You gotta walk. And it's gonna allow us to have a clearly defined walkway and queuing line. I think right now it's almost the Wild West down there. I think we need some kind of ability, and we don't want to shut anybody down. We don't want to write any tickets. I promise you that. But this is just one tool that we need to try to control that egress and walking back and forth on the sidewalk.
And I'm sure everybody wants the same thing,
Yeah.
And I wanna say that, I think back and correct me if I'm wrong, in 2020, we had some issues downtown and on the strip, and we met with bar owners. I think we went through a few months of discussions, came back, we've never really made any substantial leaps except to say we just need to place more police officers in this geographical location. My perspective is that we're placing at times a disproportionate share of TPD assets into 2 city blocks that could be better utilized in many other areas of our city that need additional law enforcement. So what we're trying to do is create processes in place where we can have a safer environment, not have to pour in so many assets. Do I think in the end this is gonna solve it? No. I think it's a tool, as Chief Rice said. I am very concerned, and this is something we'll have to continue to look at the city. We have a combustible situation down there in the strip. And I am very worried that it's a powder keg waiting to explode. The amount of guns, drugs that we continue to confiscate in that area, y'all know a lot of that. And it's not dissipating. And all of a sudden, if we can't find better solutions, and it is certainly the 7, 8 times a year we have that, but we probably have another 10 to 12 times a year where we have a lot of issues. What we're trying to do is solve those issues without doing more draconian steps in the area. But we could go back in time, we would never let, I don't know if we would ever want to have another bar on the strip that could have, close to 1,000 people in it. And I don't know if we could go back in time, if we would ever really want to have a situation where a restaurant can morph into a bar that can get several hundred more people by side, in it, and be then adjacent to each other.
Yeah.
But we can't change that now. They're both grandfathered in, and they're both trying to do what they should do and run their businesses, but it creates the problems that we have. So to answer your question, which I think is a very fair one, is this gonna be the end-all be-all? No, sir. It will help.
Yeah.
But I can't promise you it's gonna, the images that you see, it's gonna just eradicate those overnight. That's just my opinion.
And I didn't hear from all the bar owners. I guess I should have been talking, and it's not my district, but it's still.
And,
No, it's
and
a
Mr.
concern.
Woods
I
just
want-
a
said-
fair
and so
You know what I mean? I just wanted to hear what they had to say or how they feel about it. And then at the end of the day, I know what the TPD trying to do. They're trying to, it's safety prevention. I understand that because it could get out of hand. Trust me, I know it could get out of hand. But just want to, be fair and see their position as well, and then come to a solution. But just as for today, I don't really know.
Well, I've had discussions with y'all, and I appreciate it. I really believe y'all wanted.
You might have should let me in on it then.
Well,
They call.
Well,
In all fairness,
Yeah,
they called me,
okay.
and so I didn't call them, so I guess it was.
And
I
they,
got
and
you.
they,
I got emails.
But as I was trying to say, I truly believe y'all want to do the right thing. I truly believe that. But as I asked the question when we were meeting before, I don't see any other tools right now that have been presented to us by anybody that would help, other than more police officers, and we don't have more police officers. As the chief said, I think I understood him to say, a lot of these guys are working their second shift down there.
Yeah.
And
I
your
understand that.
second shift as a police officer, the last 3-4 hours of that are tough, guys. I've done it. And especially the later it goes, and the more drunk people you talk to after about 12, 14 hours, it's harder to deal with.
I get
So
it, I get it, but-
I like this to the point that it is. Now, I'm for the suggestions that you made on this.
I don't think
If-
he was finished.
Well,
think-
I
think we
understand.
kinda stopped him.
Well, I'm not either, okay? Mr. Wilson, I'm
Yes,
not
sir.
either,
All right.
okay? But I trust our attorneys to do this. I wouldn't mind you talking outside of this if it's okay.
No,
But
ju-
what
just
I'm
like
saying-
another- hold on. Just like another bar owner took his time to speak his whole piece.
Well,
I
I'm
wanna
gonna
make sure
let
he
him,
gets-
Mr. Wilson, but right
Let me
now,
see.
I'm chairman of this committee, okay?
I know that.
Well,
Mr.
thank you
Vail.
very much.
I do understand that, but I
Now,
can't make that
as I was
statement.
trying to say earlier, I would be glad for Mr. Woodson to meet with any of these people and listen to them, and I would like to be there too. But we've worked on this and we've worked on this, and if you've got something else to say, we're gonna let you. But I don't wanna be arguing this into the third ball game, okay? And I mean that with all due respect to everybody. But at some point, we're gonna have to make a decision, and a decision to do nothing is a decision, if that's what we need to do.
Well,
Just
I'm
nothing
not-
and let
I'm
it
not
go.
Against queuing, I wanna know, I heard about insurance, they've been taxed on insurance, I mean, I wanna know the full scope of things.
Well,
Okay, if queuing is the way out, let's queue. But let's find out what's going on. I want to know the full scope. Are they being charged fairly, or what? Or is the insurance killing them on there? And I feel like bar owners have a responsibility, and they do the best they can. Trust me. I think the
I
mob
agree
do the
with
best they can, but we got people who get out of hand, so you can't really tax people for that. You know what I mean? But
Well, I don't disagree.
Yeah, right.
I'm just telling you.
I'm just
I don't
trying to
disagree.
feel like I need to get the whole scope of the matter, and because finances, the whole. I just want to know it all. Like again, I'm not against Q. I'm not against if it's gonna assist TPD with that, but I want to know the entire scope and how we honor that, and we just
Well,
we just got to be fair.
We
around the board
discussed
and
it
answer
last
them.
week, some of this, and I agree with you, but, you know, and I'm sorry if the insurance goes up, but to me, that's a cost of doing business. And I mean, that might sound harsh, but I think it just is. But did you have more to say? Mr. Wilson thinks you did.
I do, I have a couple.
He
more
did.
questions.
Sure, go
I
ahead.
appreciate it, thank you for consideration. In this proposed ordinance, I guess, it speaks to about 24 hours. And I think as a business owner, we all trying to adjust to this new queuing, what it look like and things of that nature. So I like to propose an alternative. Maybe the first incident, maybe it's a warning or some level of, first violation, we have a period of, it's a warning, right? So it's not immediately it's shut down, but we all trying to adjust and adapt to the new things. And maybe with a warning, you cannot queue, or you stop the line, or don't let anybody else inside the business. But I think right now, the way it's written is like the first violation is a 24-hour suspension or closing business. I don't know if that's right, if we're introducing this, and we have to hear and adjust to it. Maybe that's something that we can add.
My
Is that
thought
how
was
it reads,
warning.
Jimbo? I thought there was
Here's the
a
set.
sequence of warnings involved with this.
Chief of police or his designees authorized to suspend the use of a permitted queuing area for up to 24 hours. So that means simply you can stay open, but you can't queue. Or close a business establishment to do minutes for up to 24 hours. So you stay open, but nobody else can come in. Or to close this business establishment completely for up to 24 hours due to queuing without a permit. So if you got a permit, you're covered. Or due to queuing that is hazardous to public health, safety, and welfare. So if something chaotic breaks out and they had no choice, that would be the instance where they would do that. And as you've dealt with TBD before, they don't jump to close your doors. How many of you have been closed for example, for overcrowding? And that's coming from the fire marshal, but it does happen. How many of you got a warning first, or was it or first instance?
I know, I was talking about 8A when they walked in and asked us if we would close early because the streets were crowded. We haven't actually been shut down.
Okay. How many have been actually shut down for 24 hours? So,
We've been threatened to be shut
You've
down.
been warned, it sounds like.
Oh, we've been threatened.
all right, so
But you
you'll
know
keep
your
it for 24
capacity,
hours?
right?
Yes, sir, this was
Yes, we know
before
our
we renovated
capacity.
Colette's
Okay.
there to the state it is in now.
So,
Yeah.
one of you's been shut down by the fire department for overcrowding.
But everybody knows their capacity, right? That's not a question, Brandon. I mean, right, you know your capacity. And I think you're responsible for your capacity. And I don't mean to be, well, I mean, that's just the way it is. Whatever you have.
You got one?
Yeah, I just have one more.
Sure.
And the last one is pretty critical, certainly to the vitality of our business, certainly other ones as well. A lot of the businesses, certainly talking about 8A night games, those games let out probably, let's call it, they start at 8 or 7 to 8 after 10 o'clock. You got 100-some thousand people exiting Bryant-Denton Stadium. They're looking somewhere to go. Our lines are gonna swell. Having a 10 o'clock time frame is putting it's like penalizing the business from out the gate and trying to get all those people in or get your line to a point where we're trying to get to our capacity. 10 o'clock is really when the crowds really start showing up, and they show up in large numbers, at least at our establishment. So my proposal or recommendation would be, can we look at extending that to 11 p.m., if not 12 a.m., to give us time to get people in, so we can deal with the queuing properly and more efficiently, so we can talk about, again, make sure everybody else, guys, we're at capacity now. But if we're not at capacity and our lines are long, we're trying to get people in, 10 p.m. is the death knell to us, because our lines are super long because we're trying to get people in. At least that's our experience. I'm sure some other ones have that.
I think, I'm sorry to jump in, but I think some of that's where, speak out if I'm wrong, but I think most of the people representing the industry in this room probably have a pretty good experience with our officers. And I think to some degree, you gotta trust our officers that when Bryant-Denny lets out and there's a flood of people at 10:15, the first thing they're not gonna be doing is coming to you and say, how come you're past your line? I think you can trust your officers to use their discretion. They're gonna have, half of them are probably still gonna be directing traffic.
Right, that was my thought. I think Chief,
It's certainly something we can look at, and we can always come back and amend. We can come back and say this didn't work after the third game and get rid of it. But I think you have to kind of trust some of the discretion that the first thing they're going to be doing isn't going to the end of the queuing line and saying cut off right there, especially when you're not capacity, because quite frankly, they want you full because they want those people off the street.
Yeah, and that's to the point, then it goes in conflict with what we have here in writing. Because again, we're supposed to stop the line, the queue, our front facade extent of our business. The lines are long, they're merging now with our other business partners is down the way. We're creating something else, right? If we can extend the time, that allows us to get people in so we can get to that capacity, in my opinion, then we can certainly help address the queuing, the line control, and other things that's part of this.
I wouldn't, 11 o'clock to me, 10, 11 o'clock,
It helps.
that wouldn't, for us, wouldn't be that big of a deal. Now, in 3 months, we say, it's a big deal, we may come back and look at it, but 10, 11 o'clock to us,
Still,
I
Can
don't
we
have
move
a
it to
problem.
11 then?
I don't have a problem with 11 o'clock. I mean, these kids are not even, they're not finishing the breakfast.
Starts
until
getting
10
up
o'clock.
at 10:30.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
thank you. And I didn't mean to interrupt you, so.
So we're going,
So maybe we can move.
we've got a
on.
recommendation
We
to
got-
change to 11 p.m. And then we'll address the language for, the designee. So we're more clear on who the chief designee is. So we may specify captain or above or highest ranking, something, we'll do something there. And,
So you wanna change the language?
and the
then we
business
vote on the
owner
next
not
one?
being responsible for that area of the
We
right
can't
of way
do it
outside the
tonight,
queue. There's 3 things that we'll look at changing.
And
Okay.
to the, Mr., if I may, Mr.
Yes, you may,
Chairman,
Mayor.
I think the overarching thing is we want everyone in this room to have a long, healthy business.
Right.
And we also want everyone to be safe. And I know the council knows this, so it's really more for the
Right.
public. We're 25 officers short today, and we have one of the highest pay plans in Alabama. Law enforcement is facing, as you know better than anyone, a shortage. we are running out of assets and we're pushing our people 14, 16 hours a day. We can't sustain the amount of law enforcement in that area when we have needs throughout the city as well. So we're trying to create mechanisms where people can come to the Strip, come to downtown, have a great time, have the least amount of law enforcement assets put in place, that we can continue to meet the demands across the city. If we don't get better control of these areas, especially at peak times like game day weekends, A-Day, other event weekends too, to the university's credit they're drawing in, I think we're gonna have something bad happen down there. And if that happens,
It's my fear.
it's, you know, first of all, the human impact of that is overwhelming and devastating, but there will ultimately be a business impact in that area as well. And I just wanna make certain that we're, you know, I don't know, again, as I told you, Mr. Lear, because I think, could something bad happen with the queuing policy? Yeah, absolutely, something could happen. What we're trying to do is just take steps to mitigate that. And I want everyone in this room to know, we want to work with you in this, and if we do it like the suggestions you made, 11 o'clock, if Chief Rice doesn't have a problem, hey, let's try 11 o'clock.
That's
I think
right.
that's right.
That's right.
If we need to put a warning, I know, you know, I think that's fair, you know, although I do think PD is not gonna wanna write you a ticket. You know, I'm willing to, you know, say, hey, let's go that route too. We just wanna get something in place to test it, to see if it can work, can be effective, and let you guys make as much money as possible safely as possible.
That's right.
And,
Being responsible.
yeah,
And I
But we have a responsibility. I know everybody in this room knows that. We have a responsibility to do what we can to keep people safe. And I don't know if there's anything we can do, Mayor. I really don't. I hope this might work, but we won't know until we try it. Ms. Kreitz, do you have anything you need to say to correct us? I'm not asking you to say anything, I'm just giving you the opportunity.
No, sorry.
Okey-doke.
So, Mr. Wilson, so you will
And Brandon, just a minute.
fix the language and then we'll be able to vote on it, what,
Yes,
next
you
week?
will.
or something like that?
We will fix it before the agenda deadline on Friday.
Okay.
Did the agenda
Don't meet again
deadline?
to when?
Well, this,
You want-
excuse me,
It depends on what you want. You want to come back to committee?
Or bring it to one
of the other
committees.
I was thinking if it's all right with Ms. Howard, we put it on, does public safety meet next week?
Yeah.
That's fine.
Okay.
Do we?
Huh?
Then we just have, no.
Or could he change it and we just take,
Bring it
put
to
it back
finance
to
or projects.
Projects.
It doesn't matter.
Whatever,
Insurance litigation.
Probably never do
Whatever, let's do it next
Whatever.
week. I'm fine with that.
All right, projects?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Projects will be fine. I'm fine with that.
So,
Jimbo, how do we
Bring it
bookmark this? I think everybody sitting at this table is saying, oh, this won't work. Can we bookmark this for review the first week of December and evaluate how it works?
How much?
I'd like to see it evaluated after like the third home game.
Yeah.
See if it's doing anything after we've had 3 games.
Well, but aren't the first three,
Texas A&M is,
oh, is it one of
it's
the
like the
first?
1st of October.
Well, you'll know after Texas A&M.
Exactly, so
Yeah.
is this something we can look
That's
at?
your test weekend.
have any time.
Okay, Brandon, do you have something else you want
First
to
game,
say?
Everybody from everywhere is gonna be
That
here.
game's not getting out till
That game day will be here, I bet
Even though
everybody will
it
be
is
here.
Utah State, let's be honest, all the kids are gonna be gone by
Yeah, they
8 p.m.
don't care.
But, the second game's at 3:30 p.m., so we should be really involved in this, but let's be honest, A&M and all the crap that's going on between them, it's gonna be a 7 p.m. kickoff game.
What if we enacted it through December, but we met, when's the
I would
third game?
feel
I
much
wanna see
better
2
about
strong
a trial
games.
period.
But we came back after 3 games and
Yeah.
got y'all's input, because if it's a total disaster after 3 games,
Yeah.
none of us are gonna.
You don't wanna sit there till December or May of next year, you're
right.
doing the same thing.
This
Well,
committee
meets
meets
on
on
October
October
4th.
Huh?
This committee meets on October 4th. That's the Tuesday before A&M comes to town, so we would
I
have,
won't be here, that'll be good.
They need to
it would probably be best to look at it after A&M, cause that's gonna be when we all have.
We can add,
That's
we
when
can
everybody
another
showing up.
committee meeting.
That'll probably be 2:30, I guess, probably.
Game day, I bet everybody.
Yeah.
CBS.
Oh, yeah.
It's good,
Be
they're
crazy.
looking at doing the CBS doubleheader, which would put us at having an option.
Right, yeah, cause if they get the 1 slot,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
Yes, sir, please.
I was gonna ask a couple of things. if we're gonna do it like this, we need to decrease the fee on it. I mean, I don't think that, I mean, if we wanna encourage people to get the permit, I know y'all think that everybody should make a touch of it. In some places they are, but if we wanna encourage people to get the permit, this fee, I mean, it's.
The mayor's feeling generous, he's
Hey,
talking
listen
about
to
first
this.
year free, I'm okay
Yeah,
with that.
let's do that.
Or
Yeah.
10% of the door take on cover charge. What y'all laughing?
Y'all better go for free.
Well, at a minimum though, that would be a yearly fee, wouldn't it? Because
Yeah.
we're talking about relooking at this after
Let's
Pasco
get
quarter.
let's
You
get a
need to
trial
all year.
anyway.
Or maybe we
Okay,
don't
that's
charge
good. That's
anything till December.
It's
We don't
free,
charge
we still need
anything,
the permit.
and let's see what happens before we
Right.
implement the fee, because you're only really talking about 3 months.
I don't care.
Yeah.
The money is irrelevant.
No,
Yeah,
I
it's
said
not
that
about
from the
the
beginning.
safety. Yeah,
I
they
said
don't
that
know.
from
It's
the
not about
beginning,
money.
that money, we're not trying to
And
make money.
honestly, I don't think it is.
So-
It's not that much money.
For OCA clarification drafting, because I can see Jimbo's wheels turning.
You can,
You want the application fee to be 0 and the renewal fee for the second year to remain as it is, or just set everything to 0?
Well,
Until we review.
why, can we just,
Review
and
it.
again, can we just not have it be enacted until December
Yeah.
31st or
Well,
something
if-
like
if
that?
If we only keep the renewal fee and make the initial application free, nobody will have to renew until at least a year from now. So if you
I'll
can.
ask, I don't have any objection to that,
Again, I just want to make it clear from the very beginning, I made the comment, we're not in this to make money. And
That's fine
I
with
don't
me.
mind, other than, I wouldn't mind us, it costs money for whoever to fill out the form. I mean, if we charge them $10, you know, which I believe everybody can afford $10. But it costs some money for a city employee just to fill out a form. And if we're gonna give a permit, I think $10, I don't know what y'all, it doesn't matter. But I've never heard of a permit without some sort of fee to it. I don't know.
You know, again, I like, let's test it, let's see if this makes an appreciable difference, and then let's add we'll put the renewal at the levels that we've discussed earlier.
Yeah.
And then we'll go, and if you discover we have to charge some sort of fee, we'll charge the minimum that we can under Alabama law.
There may be an issue with the way it is a business license, there's something maybe due in January. We'll talk to Trent about that, and we've got until January to figure that out, so.
And I'll say to the bar owners in the room, I know Mr. Fell and all the council members feel the same way. We really want your feedback on this. We want you to be open, man. We want you to be safe. We want you to be successful. I know when you hear, we're from the government, we're here to help, you wanna laugh all the way back to your car, but we all have a shared mutual interest in that.
I mean, we've seen everything that's happened around the country, and that doesn't compromise. Like, bad things happen. We don't want it to escalate. Trust me, everyone in this room is gonna bust their butt.
y'all need to do that.
Yeah, we will.
We don't want the
Before you
powder
do.
keg you're talking about. We don't wanna see that. And
Yeah.
obviously that would affect everybody down there because no one's gonna come down there.
Right.
Ultimately, we want safety of our customers.
Sure you do. We know that.
I got kids
We believe
in
that.
school.
And
down
if this
there.
is-
Go to-
this
you
doesn't
know what I
work,
mean? You know
we're
I
not
care.
gonna
My
keep it.
kids in there.
That makes
But
sense,
still,
so, thank you guys.
Well, all right,
That's good.
have I would like a motion to move it to projects next week.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. that
All right, so
passes.
it's gonna be on projects next week, don't come, okay?
At 2:30.
I appreciate everybody's input.
2:30.
Whatever you think, I do appreciate it.
That's fine.
All right, do we have one more? Yes.
Oh, yeah.
All right, we don't need to go over number 2 there, do we?
Since we moved it to project.
That's just, Jimbo, that's the business license, the NAICS code classification for.
Right, they just go hand in hand, so we'll.
Okay, explain
That's all
that
it
to
is.
us.
It's the,
All right, explain that to us.
The revenue code has what they call the NAICS code. These two go hand in hand, they match. They're parallel.
Okay.
So it's nothing, it just,
Will we have to do something different? Will you have to do something different?
there'd just be an ordinance to go along with it.
Okey doke, thank you. So do we need to vote on that?
Yes, just to send it on.
All right, do we have a
Make a
motion?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, now, Chief Rice.
All right, well, this hopefully will not cause that big of an issue. We're trying to, amend the, section talking about storage facilities for, tow truck companies. Right now, the code says it has to be within the city, the storage facility, and we're trying to do it for the city or the PJ.
Okay. Any questions about that? All right, do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
That passes. Any other business this afternoon? All right, the next meeting will be August 16th. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second.
All in